Got to get this one right. This is an addendum to the addendum, the endless addendums. I thought long ago, listening to the astonishing claims Western thinkers make about Westernism, that courage and accountability in the West were bywords. Nothing could be further from the truth. The endless shirking of responsibility and accountability, the relentless "they do it too," is in fact the major cultural work of the West. While endless boys and girls sign up to defend our way of life by killing people far away, not because they threaten our way of life, but because that is what we demand of our citizens we call free. They might at most ignore it, defy its righteousness, and or Kandiaronk laugh at us. The right-winger pilgrims will say, expecting a zealous nod, that Western civilization is the greatest version of the notion of civilization ever. Then I will leave the room. It's very funny. For the past decade, I think, there have been probably many, many earlier ones, probably since 1075, the First Crusade, probably before. No, I probably started around then. There have been these debates, and either in-house debates or debates with actually representatives of the other civilizations, the options, say Buddhists or Confucians or Taoists or something like that. Usually not. Usually the argument comes down to Christianity West, Islam East. Islam is a Western religion, sons of Abraham, etc. Abrahamic. But one guy said, I think in something about 8 years ago, a very tall, articulate, avuncular fellow said, he was the second to speak in the debate, and he responded to the first speaker by saying, well, yes, it is clearly very, very important to the West that they are considered by themselves and by everybody else as the best. It is their obsession. I've not heard that obsession from other parts of the world. I never, in Trinidad, never heard things like it was the greatest country on the face of the earth ever. They're singular obsessions. And it seems, as with most empires, that the poets and the media and the intellectuals all get together and they write history and they write the stories to promote this idea of this glorious essence. And this is something that the West has done very comedically. It's just unbelievable. There was a story of they were looking for the evidence of the Trojan War. And oh boy, they were beating the earth. They were seeking, they were digging, they were reading, they were asking, they were sifting through hieroglyphics. They did everything. And then finally they said, oh, why don't we ask people east of Troy? Why don't we investigate the Hittites? And of course, there the Hittites have a record of a war going on their western shores in the appropriate date. And suddenly everybody smashed themselves with a wine urn. You know, my God, something actually happened in the East. The right-winger pilgrims will say, expecting a zealous nod, that Western civilization is the greatest version of the notion of civilization ever, and I will then leave the room. We can do the numbers, but the silliness is in the need to make the claim. The poor Douglas Murray or Joe Biden will tear up. So deeply have they sunk their selfhood, sense of self, into the Disneyland of this faith. The West might look upon itself, for instance, and say, well, we have gay rights. Yes, at last, Israel 1988, and given their claims of foreverness, that is very late to put down the stones. And what happened to Alan Turing? And when was that? In the 1950s? But look at the root of this persecution. Thou shalt not fancy that which I do not fancy. If thou provoke the fancy I might have buried deep, that might break out in my sons and daughters. My fantasy self just couldn't handle it. The argument's no more complex. To my brother, I said, I interpret or think the achievement of the West is its storytellers, who have convinced so many for 500 years that life is a fantasy, a plan laid out by Dad, far away and high above. It is written, says Sharif Ali in Lawrence. Nothing is written, retorts the singularly atypical Englishman. It has been the labor of our self-regarding arts and literature since BC. This is probably why we have such problems interpreting the works of artists BC, the ones that tackle life itself and not our fantasy of it. Not Michelangelo's very Aryan David, but the boxer at rest by Apollonius of Athens 1500 years earlier, for instance. Anything but the giant Greek three dramatists expressing struggle with gods, not obedience to God. Of course, just as many resisted the flimsy supremacism, and they lie forever in unmarked graves. There's a great moment at the end of the film of Zulu, a wonderful film, when the retreating Africans sing a glorious song to the surviving Brits below. One sergeant says, "Oi, they're mocking us." The wily scout dressed in black, who speaks Zulu, said, "No, you fool, they are saluting you." Then the lads start singing their own song. It seems in answer, it's some religious, British Grenadiers type thing. And there is no line in this song, "Well, good on you too, you massively brave men that charged our guns with leather shields and short spears over and over and over again, bravo." Never happened, even in the screenwriter's head. We are what we are. Quote, "Oh, that's all in the past. My parents didn't own slaves, not all men. Can't we all just get along? We are now the oppressed ones. Any criticism is anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-West, Christian, American, Euro-bashing. So just stop it, okay?" Pout. I did imagine it might have been all in the past. I did when I was 12. In 1968, before Dr. King was murdered, before Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed even, but not anymore. You're going to have to apologize, Western white Christian civilization. Just going to have to do it. And first admit you are to date incapable, too small, and more I look at it, I know it won't happen. The investigation into the plan and planner, if you could say, "Yes, I did that," all would be different. But the best you could do is say, "I was only obeying orders." Maybe one day there will be a Euro Mamdani, but I'll not hold my breath. It's not in the plan. My beleaguered sister believes I hate believers. No, I hate the sin, not the sinner. Forgive them, Mum, they know not what they do. Monotheists are my enemy, but I'm not murderous. The pagans said, if you kill them, you will not change their mind, and I have no desire even to change their minds. Just ask them to stop killing people. I have not the issue with their belief they have with mine. Non-belief. Just stop imposing your fantasy on the rest of us and assure yourself at least I am not an atheist. It's just I have not one God. And in this is all the difference. And mine have no plan.